Alpha Team report.
What's happening, Heather?
Alpha Team isn't responding.
Bravo?
Still nothing.
You lost both teams? Get a grip on this operation, Heather. That's bored. Green light, yes, sir.
Sir, I need more time.
We have no time. Are you going to give that order or not?
Sir, please.
You're too naive to see the truth. There's no bringing in Bourne. He has to be put down. And you obviously cannot do what has to be done. I am.
We will defend these police officers.
Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. The nation needs to realize that when we tell you to do something, do it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get to pick the laws. We enforce them. But at the end of the day, each and every member is to go home safe. Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to comply with the police officer the way the system was meant to be. Comply with the orders of police officers. Resisting arrest is a real and dangerous crime.
Nonpartisan Liberty for All. I'm your host, Dave Bourne, and it is August 30th, 2016, and I'm coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada. Had an issue at the beginning of the show, but we fixed that rather quickly. Sometimes at the beginning, when I use Spreaker for the live feeds of the show, and sometimes it I don't know, it's like it's disconnecting, and I just restart it because I don't want to go through the whole fucking show worrying about it and having problems. So anyway, I very quickly restarted the show. But anyway, thank you for tuning in to Nonpartisan Liberty for All. We're on weeknights, Tuesday through Thursday at 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern. And you can listen live on Spreaker.com and NonpartisanLibertyForAll.com. And to the archives immediately following the show on Spreaker, YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes. On Nonpartisan Liberty for All, we promote the ideas of true freedom and liberty, meaning being able to do whatever you want as long as you respect the freedom of others and don't directly interfere with their freedom. Exposing government for what it is, a mafia based on extortion that rules without consent by threat of force and violence. And the most important concept, self-ownership. We are happy to hear from you. You can reach us via phone at 702-470-7664. That's 702-470-7664. Or via Skype at Nonpartisan Liberty for All. It's all one word. And you can check us out at nonpartisanlibertyforall.com, where you can find original articles, editorials, things of that nature, along with all of the links, contact information, the call-in number in case you forget it, and Skype username as well. So check us out there at nonpartisanlibertyforall.com. So today's show really, to me, shouldn't even be a fucking show. And I say that with the whole idea that sports is ridiculously nationalized, meaning, I mean, I guess that can mean a couple different things, but I mean in the context of nationalism and patriotism and all of this bullshit. And it starts in like Little League and goes all the way to the pros. And why before every fucking game they have to not only salute the country and perform the national anthem, sometimes America the Beautiful, some places the Pledge of Allegiance or something. I don't think they do that at any games. They may at like Little League games or something. But, I mean, it's ridiculous. I've done shows on this before, so although because of the incident that happened over I think it was the whole preseason, but people just didn't notice. But because of that, I have to revisit this again, which is a good time because we haven't really talked about it in a while. So there's so many things really to say about this, and a lot of them have nothing to do with Colin Kaepernick or his politics or any of that. But the whole idea of how far fucking these networks go to celebrate the military. I mean, first of all, let me summarize what happened before we get into that for people who don't know. And I'm sure if you're listening to the show, you probably know. Anyway, Colin Kaepernick, who if you've seen any of the pictures of me in the studio, I think the ones that are out there there's 3 different ones that I did. And I either have a UNLV shirt on, a Nevada Reno shirt on, or like a Las Vegas 51 shirt on. Because pretty much besides dress shirts, I do love my button-up dress shirts, but, I wear football jerseys and, like, nice ones. I mean, I don't wear, like, raggedy fucking football jerseys and shit. And I have some baseball jerseys. I have, and they're fucking expensive. So the baseball jerseys were $75. The 51s ones I got, and the 51s are the Las Vegas AAA team. They're the AAA team of the Mets. I liked it better when they were the AAA team of the Dodgers, to be honest. And that's where they look more like the Dodgers, because if they look like the Mets, I don't know if I would have got them. Even though I support the team and go to the games and shit, but I'm not a big baseball fan. I like going to the 51s games, but I wouldn't watch them on TV if they were on TV. So anyway, Colin Kaepernick happened to play for University of Nevada, Reno. And we only have 2 universities in the state of Nevada, that are part of the university system. I mean, there's like University of Phoenix, and I think there's Nevada State. They're starting up, but I mean, it's not that I want to knock. I mean, I went to University of Phoenix for my master's, not my bachelor's, but I don't want to knock any other up and coming colleges. I hope the state of Nevada develops a state university system. But I don't know that we really need it because we have a concentrated population in 2 places, really. Is like, I think it's like 75 to 80% of the population is in the Reno or Las Vegas area. So of the state, because the federal government owns 80% of the land. So even if we wanted to develop communities, we couldn't do that. And that's fucked up. And that's probably a reason why those were never developed. I mean, it's all desert. So you could say, well, nobody ever wanted to venture out that far. And that's probably bullshit because Las Vegas did it. And, yes, Las Vegas is at the southern tip of Nevada where the weather's nice. And if you go too far up, but Reno is cold. It gets cold in the winter. I was actually there in the Reno area, Lake Tahoe, which is like an hour away, and it was freezing. I know Lake Tahoe is colder because it's further up elevation-wise than Reno, but it was freezing. So I'm sure if it was freezing in Lake Tahoe, it was, and this was, for some reason I'm thinking it was even October and it was freezing. It was probably, cold in Reno. And actually I thought we might have went to Reno. I don't know. Anyway, so I watched Colin Kaepernick play college ball for the Nevada Wolfpack, and his senior year they went 13-1, and they had a great year because of him. So I'm not a fan of the 49ers, but I was happy for him that he went to the NFL, and I don't root for the 49ers, especially when they had Jim Harbaugh as the coach. But, I hope he does well. So I've known who he was for, a while now, playing at Nevada Reno. And I liked his style of play, which was more the coach, but he was great at running it. So it was him as well. Also, what a lot of people don't know is that he was only offered one division. Only one school offered him a Division I scholarship, and we had talked about divisions. We actually did a college football show. So Division I is the top division, and then there's a bunch of divisions under it. So only one school offered him a scholarship, and it was Nevada Reno. And he's from, I guess he was born in Wisconsin. I don't know when he moved, but I was always under the impression he grew up in California. So I'm assuming he moved as a kid. But he grew up in Turlock, I guess. It said he was from Turlock, California. And that's where I know he went to high school, which I believe is in that general area between, San Francisco and Reno, upstate California, and I guess upstate Nevada, you could call it as well. Which he's been in that area for a while because, he played for Reno and then he played for the 49ers. And I think that's one of the reasons why they drafted him as well. Not that they didn't think he was good enough, because he ended up getting drafted in the first round, and he wasn't supposed to be drafted in the first round according to experts. But the 49ers... probably that was, I don't know how much of a factor that was, but that was probably a slight factor, because he was the type of guy that if he wasn't going to be a quarterback, he could be a running back or a wide receiver or something like that. So he didn't have, like you have now with the former Michigan quarterback is a running back now. His name is slipping my mind. Denard, shit. His name's Denard something. Anyway, he was the quarterback for Michigan, but now he's a running back, I think, for the Jaguars. So even though he's not playing quarterback, they still, of course, drafted him. So guys like that are always going to get drafted because they can use them for other positions, like Cordell Stewart. That had happened. He was a wide receiver, but then, well, he was a quarterback, I believe, in college. Then they drafted him, put him at wide receiver. Then he went back to quarterback. And he actually made the Pro Bowl. And then I don't know what happened to him. Anyway, so Colin Kaepernick is. My point is that Colin Kaepernick is not somebody who I don't know. I have actually two of his Nevada Reno jerseys, both the home and away ones, like the real jerseys. They don't have his name on the back, but if you look at the pictures from when he's playing, the jerseys look almost the same. I got them on eBay actually. So, and I will still wear those proudly. So, back to nationalism in sports. I don't know the history of the national anthem in sports, and I would think baseball would be the first sport, at least professionally, that was around. I know football's been around, since the leather helmet days. It's been around for a long, long time. College football, but not pro. So I don't know what they did in college football back. I think it goes back before the 1900s or right around there, and same with baseball. Professional baseball, it's been around over 100 years. So I don't know what they did back then, and I should have tried to look it up, is when they started. Actually, I do know this. It wasn't the national anthem until 1933. So that being said, obviously, if there was a national anthem, it was not the current national anthem. So I would have to guess that they probably weren't going through this whole process, and that there probably wasn't even a national anthem. I don't know. I didn't actually think of these things. I didn't think of that earlier. I should have thought of that. But as I think more about this, those come up. But I do know that the national anthem wasn't the national anthem until 1933. So what they did before that, whether they had a different national anthem or not, I don't know. And why you need a fucking national anthem, first of all, I don't know neither. So I think, first of all, the fact that, number one, they have a national anthem, who gives a fuck? It's pointless. And the fact that they sing it at every sporting event is fucking ridiculous as well. I think it's a form of worship of the government and worship of, I know people want to say, well, the flag is not the government or how the country's going now. Yes, it is. The flag is the government. Don't get shit twisted. Fucking to say the flag is not part of the government is to say that, and people would say, well, the country is not the government. The flag, then what is it then? What is the country without a government? If you take the government away, right, is it still a country? If we eliminate government? No, it's not. It's a bunch of land. So I look at the flag the same way. The flag represents the government. That's what it represents. So and I do not stand for the national anthem, and I haven't for years now. I have season tickets to UNLV, although I didn't get them this year. I was trying to save some money. And their first game actually is on Thursday. So it's a home game just for everybody in Las Vegas. I think they're playing Jackson State. It's either Jackson State or Jacksonville, some shitty AA team. Or Division 1 AA or something, whatever. But it starts on Thursday. So this is the start of the college football season, which I'm actually excited about. But that's a whole nother issue. So all that, first of all, can just go. And not only that, they celebrate the fuck out of the military in these games. So you have Afghanistan, you have Iraq, you have, I don't know how many documents that Chelsea Manning had that he gave to WikiLeaks that was released. But I think a lot of it was on Iraq and how fucked up all the shit the government was doing. There's a whole bunch of shit. Nobody can possibly go through it. I guess if that's like all you do for like a year or something. From what I understand, it was a lot of information. But anyway, the main point was that, they were purposely killing, civilians. Everything was a lie, all the bullshit. Afghanistan, all the poppies. I don't have a problem with them bringing poppies in, but let everybody else bring fucking poppies in. And if they want to have heroin or morphine or any of that stuff, it's the hypocrisy that's fucked up. So everybody for the most part knows that the production of opium went way up in Afghanistan after the U.S. went in there and started guarding the fucking opium crops. And then they go in other countries and they have the other governments go after them. And then all of these farmers that are poor anyway lose money for something that people choose to do. And they get a bunch of, I don't even want to go back into this, but I saw another thing on heroin where it makes it look like heroin goes around on its own and jumps in the needles and injects people on its own. And that the reason why people are getting bad heroin, because there's a batch of bad heroin, is because of these bad drug dealers. Well, the reason why people are getting bad heroin is because of the fucking government making heroin illegal, along with all these other drugs. If people could just go and buy whatever they wanted, the amount of people, first of all, that got bad heroin would be zero, or any bad drug for that matter, unless there was some, obscure thing that happened. And the amount of people that actually OD'd off it would probably go way the fuck down as well. And that even did it in the first place. So that's a whole nother issue that we've talked about before. But the point being is they're sitting there celebrating the military, and the military's over there for no fucking good reason. Now, is that the fault of the soldiers themselves? No. Do I blame them? Most of them, no. I've talked about especially the 18-year-olds that get talked into it, or the guys who are just trying to get some fucking money or don't have any other options. But do I stand for the troops or support the troops or any of that shit? No, I don't. Because they don't protect my freedom. This fucking narrative that somehow you're protecting my freedom by blowing up Iraq or Afghanistan or fucking any of the countries in the Middle East or even Vietnam. Now, Vietnam was really unfair to the veterans because a lot of them got drafted and didn't even want to fucking be there. Now, personally, I would have went to Canada or just been on the run. But I don't blame the guys that got drafted and went because they're like, fuck, what do I do? Especially the younger ones. I mean, well, that's pretty much what they were doing. We're drafting young people. And then how much do they have in resources to take off and hide? So, and a lot of them did go to Canada, and Jimmy Carter pardoned them, which is probably one of the only good things he did. But I don't know enough about the Carter presidency to really say. It's one of the good things he did that I'm aware of, because they should have been pardoned before that. It was fucking ridiculous. So I feel bad for those guys. I don't hate anybody in the military, but the military are paid killers. They're paid mercenaries. They're just hired by the government. I mean, that's what they are. They're nothing more than that. And since I've been alive, there has been nothing that they have done to, quote unquote, protect my freedom as far as I'm concerned. Now, they can say, well, they did all this black ops shit and that protected my freedom. No, it didn't. Because, again, when you look at my actual freedom, which is more oppressed by the U.S. government more than anybody else, that they would have to actually come over here to fuck with my freedom. Okay? And I got guns too. I'm not a fucking military sharpshooter, but, I know how to fire a gun. And so does, millions of other Americans. So to be honest, I'm not really worried about it. That's the least of my worries. And I'm a very stressful person. I get stressed out probably very easily. I let stupid shit get to me. Like stuff like this. And the last thing I worry about is some other country fucking invading and taking away my freedom. Now, the people that I worry about taking away my freedom is the United States government and all their fucking dogs and, as in the form of the police, and whether the military would follow those orders as well. So no, I don't recognize any, the military shouldn't exist, in my opinion. There was supposed to be a standing, there wasn't supposed to be a standing military. And that was for good reason. Because technically, if the military wanted to run everything and take over, they could. I mean, it's just look at what the military has. In all seriousness, who's as powerful as the U.S. military? Who would stand up to the U.S. military, assuming that everybody was on board, or enough people were on board that they could take over, or that enough people were on board that people couldn't stop them from taking over. So this whole thing of nationalism and showing it on sporting events and teaching fucking little kids, man, the whole thing is a fucking brainwash of society. And we'll get to examples of that in a minute, because these people are going off the fucking rails. That's why I'm saying that this shouldn't be an issue. I shouldn't be talking about this today. Seriously. Because it shouldn't even be in the fucking news. And if it was somebody else, I'd probably still talk about it because of the whole nationalism and bullshit and all of that. It's not just because it's Colin Kaepernick. But the reason what I mean when I say I shouldn't be talking about this is, I mean, this should not be a fucking story. This should be a non-story. This shouldn't be all over the news. This shouldn't be the number one top story on ESPN. It's not only the top story on ESPN. There's other conservative shows. That fucking douchebag, I shouldn't have turned on the radio, that Wayne Allen Root, who lives in Las Vegas, who somehow he's on the radio and talks about how great he fucking is, said all this shit about Colin Kaepernick. Also, he should do his fucking research, because he knew nothing. He was saying he was like 6'7", 6'8", which he's, I believe, 6'4", 6'5" at the tallest. And he said that a handful of people got killed by the police. So obviously all he does is watch government media and believe everything he reads, and doesn't actually do any research whatsoever. And this guy writes books and does speaking events. Somehow, I don't know what credibility he has, to be honest. I think he went to Harvard, so with Barack Obama, he claims. So I guess if you go to Harvard, and I think that's how he got attention, started to get attention. That's the first time I remember hearing about him. He was on Fox News, and he sounded like a moron, to be honest. Anyway, so, he says a handful of people. Okay, I don't know where you're getting your information from, but that's nice that you don't know anything, and you got a fucking radio show. But the point being is this should not be a big deal. It should be like, whatever. So what? Oh, somebody didn't stand at the national anthem. And there's pressure for people to stand during the national anthem. Because I feel it when I sit down. I remember one guy said something to me, but he was kind of joking because I don't fuck around with that shit. And he was like, and everybody stands, you stand, but he kind of said it joking. And then I said, I don't remember what I said, but I gave him kind of like an attitude like, well, I fucking don't. I'm not going to stand for, whatever. And he shut up. So I sit there and I hope nobody says anything because I don't want to get in an altercation over it. But I don't think that doesn't cross my mind, and I'm not sitting there through that whole fucking national anthem thinking about some idiot starting a fight with me. Now I can take care of myself, but you got 4 or 5 drunken idiots that want to start a fight because I'm not going to stand or remove my hat if I had one. Usually I don't, occasionally. So I don't stand for the reason that the government is oppressing everybody and the police are oppressing and murdering people. And I don't say just black people. I say that the government is oppressive to everybody. And it's becoming more and more oppressive. Of course, I talk about all that shit on the show. And so I'm not going to stand for and celebrate this bullshit. And if you look deeper into it, it's so obvious what it is and what the point of it is. But people don't realize it. They're too wrapped up in this bubble to see it for what it really is. It's just brainwashing of it's something Hitler would do. Especially the Pledge of Allegiance. I think the Pledge of Allegiance originally was written by a fascist guy or a Nazi or something. I heard the original story of the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't remember all the details, but it wasn't good. It was either written by a self-proclaimed communist or fascist or something like that, because you're pledging allegiance to a government. And the reactions show how fucking brainwashed you are. It's insane. You have this, and this is why it's the top story. This shows how fucked up the country is. Now, on one side of it, they want it to be the top story. Government media wants it to be the top story because they want to show, look how much people love America and look how much people are patriotic and follow nationalism, meaning our country's the best, we're the best, fuck everybody else. Now, I don't look at some other country and say, well, they're better. I have an issue with government, and I've said this before. There are some people that look at the U.S. and say the U.S. is fucked up, but this government over here is great. No, I have an issue with government. That is my issue, because government is a form of control. And like I said, you look it up in any dictionary. I'm for an organized society without people ruling over me. So my issue is government, and it just so happens that the United States is, as I've said, before recently. I think I said this last week that, you know, the United States government is or happens to be the most powerful in the world right now. But if there was some other country, you know, they'd be doing the same fucked up things. And don't get me wrong, other countries are doing fucked up things. So these people that put down the United States but prop up other governments, I don't mean literally prop them up, but, you know, put up other governments, like, look what they're doing over there. That's great. Like communist governments or those type of things. That's not me. And I did a whole show about how Black Lives Matter is just a communist front. And that's one of the reasons why I don't support them. Not to mention that they're making it harder to focus on police is the issue. That they're making it all about race, and it's not all about race. So if you look at what Colin Kaepernick said, essentially, I would say the same thing, except I would take the race out of it. I would say I don't stand for it because we live in a country where the government oppresses all people. And it's not a country of freedom. It's illusion of freedom. And they extort money and they do it without consent. And all of these things that are, some of them are facts. Some of them are my opinion, but it's kind of hard to, you know, debate a lot of these factual things that have happened. Now, the way you interpret them, I guess that's up to you. But the fact that the government extorts money, that's a fact. Look up the definition of extortion. I don't want to pay my taxes. I only pay my taxes because if I don't pay my taxes, I will go to jail. That's extortion. Or I only want to pay taxes for certain things that I believe in or I support. Doesn't matter. And why can't you do that? Well, one, government wants to tell you what to do, but they want to choose where the money goes. Redistribution of wealth, of course, is one of the other reasons. And all of these programs would go away, but it would be a free market type solution to say, we're not making enough money, so this program is going away. People don't understand that free market and democracy are the same thing, because what it is just voting with your dollars. Because it's deciding to shop somewhere or not shop anywhere. So people talk about democracy and we need to keep things whatever for democracy and all of this shit. Well, there's nothing more democratic than the free market. And I'm not talking about crony capitalism or corporatism. I'm talking about free markets, meaning that the government doesn't collude with corporations. Corporations are actually a creation of government, so they wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for government. But you shop where you want to shop. The places that don't get any business will not exist. So if you paid your taxes where you wanted to pay your taxes, the things that people didn't want wouldn't exist unless they got private funding. And that's fine if they can get private funding, but it wouldn't be government funding and government propping all this shit up that shouldn't be there. Anyway, so you have this whole brainwashing that is so evident in these people, and I'll play some of the clips from them that look like fucking morons. because they sit there and get angry and say, you know, remember what this is. Put this in context, okay? They're getting angry about somebody not standing during the national anthem. But people get killed by police. Who gives a fuck? The militarization of police, which you can say, I think that would be no matter who you are, you can't say that that's racist, I guess. I guess you can, because you could say, well, they're doing it for black people, but that's not true because all white neighborhoods have automatic weapons. See, this is the whole thing too. All white neighborhoods have automatic weapons and fucking those tanks as well. So there's a lot of flaws in a lot of these arguments. Now, the fact is that racism still does exist. Just because there's a black president and black people can become successful doesn't mean racism doesn't exist. I believe it's a little harder for a black person to become successful in general. Now, it depends on who you are, because there are plenty of black people who have successful parents who it is easier for them to make it than plenty of white kids. But they only show you, it's like the fucking media and groups like Black Lives Matter, who I said I wasn't going to mention again, but I can't, like, they're getting so involved in all of this fucking shit that I can't get away from them. Like, I can't fucking talk about shit without them coming up. Now, if they actually went out there and were just protested the police, and if they protested them for the same killings, I'd be fine with them and focused on police killing people. And they can bring up race as well, but don't make that the focal point. Make the focal point the police are killing people, and they're killing black people, but they're killing all people, so we need to fucking do something about it. But the only reason people think that they only kill black people is because government media, that's all they show you. And to me, this is not about white or black. I could fucking care less. I don't identify with a race and say, oh, I care about fucking people because they're white. I mean, I was going to say I hate everybody equally, but however you want to put it. I love everybody equally. I hate everybody equally. Whatever. I actually probably like white people less, to be honest. But maybe that's because of my family. My mother's side. No, actually, my mother's side was nice. My dad's side. But my dad's side was almost not white. I mean, they were white, but actually, it was just my dad. He had he looked a little Hispanic there, so. Anyway, he was Jewish, so I've, I guess, been discriminated against on that end, but I mean, people don't know if you're Jewish or not, so it's not like, you know, I don't look Jewish. I mean, I could pass for like half white, half Hispanic or something. I don't know. That's about as far as it would probably go. Although when I used to have my hair braided, some lady who, and I was surprised, it was during the summer, so maybe I had a tan. Some lady who had mixed kids thought I was mixed. I don't know. But this was a long time ago. So, and she was drunk. Maybe that's whatever. Anyway, my point being is that I don't sit there and identify with a race, not to say that, you know, genetically I'm not part of a race. Okay, if you need to classify me. But what I mean is I'm not like these are my people or cultural or whatever, like say people that come over from Italy and they, you know, have an Italian social club and they stay involved in their culture. And that's, see, this whole thing where people say, well, if white people did this, they call them racist. The difference kind of is, though, is that they wouldn't be if it's specific to a culture. Now, I'll explain what I mean real quick. So, although it's kind of weird, like all black people are just thrown together. Like American black people, I guess if you're from Jamaica or Haiti or, you know, came over directly from Africa, maybe not. But what I mean is, if you're Irish and celebrate Irish culture, nobody calls you racist. Or you're Italian and you celebrate, you know, Columbus and Italian culture, and there's Italian social clubs, nobody calls you racist. It's just the in general white. So, you know, when I think about it that way, I can kind of I understand what people are saying. However, I understand on the other side that black people, if they say something about white people, which I don't get offended by, I don't really care, but that it's okay. And it really shouldn't be okay. Just like the whole idea that black people can't be racist. I don't buy that neither. So, but my point about culture, or I guess European culture, that when people celebrate where they're from, like they have a St. Patrick's Day parade where they celebrate the Irish people. And I don't think anybody, they might say that some Irish people are racist, but the fact that they're celebrating St. Patrick's Day, nobody says that, oh, you guys are being racist for celebrating St. Patrick's Day. Or, you know, the Irish and Italian are the two that come to mind so quickly just because I grew up right outside of Boston, where it's majority of the white people are Irish and Italians. So that's what I think of. And so that's kind of how I think of that, to just people that say, well, they want to celebrate white culture or something, or white people. Like, what the fuck is that, though? You know what I mean? So I could see a point to that, but we're kind of getting off track here. But as far as the national anthem goes and all of this shit, I see the country oppressing everybody. All races, and from so many different directions. And as I just said too, I mean, the all white neighborhoods are getting tanks and automatic weapons as well. So I think if you go back in history, I think there's definitely more black people were harassed by police in the past. And I still think more are now percentage-wise, not more number-wise. But the government's got to a point where it's a war on the people as far as I'm concerned. And they want to divide people. And that's what they're doing. But as far as the overreaction here, so you have this as a top story, which there's no fucking need for this to be a top story. It should be, you know, if they mention it somewhere in the sports section, whatever. I don't see this as a big deal. But there are people that are burning his jersey, calling him all sorts of names. I'm sure racial epithets came into it. And, you know, Colin Kaepernick, to be honest, when he has his hair short and when he was at University of Nevada and his first couple years until like now or the past maybe year, he didn't even really look. He's his mother's white and his father's black, but like he kind of looks like he could be a bunch of things. Like he could be Middle Eastern, or he could be Hispanic, or he could be a dark Italian. Like seriously, he doesn't. Right now, and this is kind of funny, if you'd ever watched the show The Wire, one of the guys who played a crackhead, he kind of looks like him because he grew his hair out like him. But Colin Kaepernick is not your like blackest looking person in the world. You know what I mean? Like you might not even, if you didn't know he was black, you might not think he's black. I mean, not that that really means anything. And that doesn't not give him a right to say what he said or feel how he feels. I'm just saying that he doesn't necessarily look all that, black like you'd know. And I'm trying to remember, like, when I first became aware of him at the University of Reno and started following them, I don't know if I knew he was black. I might have thought he was mixed or something. I don't know, because he's I don't know like what his father looked like, but his father was probably not that dark neither. But again, I mean, that's kind of irrelevant. Anyway, people are angry over a fucking piece of fabric, okay? A piece of fabric, I know, your fucking flag, whatever, your precious flag, it doesn't mean anything. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And I know people are going to get offended by the shit that I'm saying, and I'm not trying to offend people. I'm just trying to be real, because when it comes down to it, that flag, I know in the military they say that flag represents all the freedom we fought for. Well, probably, maybe, I don't know how many people, but not many people that are even alive today can say they fought for any kind of freedom. Because even if you count World War II, where World War II wouldn't even have happened if you didn't have billionaires or millionaires. They might as well have been billionaires, because millionaires back then were like billionaires now, funding fucking Hitler before the war happened, and all of this other shit that comes into play. So really, the only war for freedom, and it was only for certain people's freedom, was the Revolutionary War. And I guess the War of 1812, because it did take place here. So if England, that's one of the wars I remember studying, and I remember the Star Spangled Banner coming out of that. And that's really, I don't remember much. And the White House being set on fire, and James Madison's wife taking the painting of George Washington and all of that. But besides that, I mean, what war, what people alive today fought for freedom or for our freedom? You might have fought for freedom for other people. I'll give you that. Like, technically you could say, even though supposedly they told him he could go in there anyway when Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait, and they probably did, and they were, I mean, he's former CIA operative. But anyway, so maybe they freed the Kuwaiti people, the military, from Iraq. Okay, fine. And did they really free Iraq from anybody? Because look at where Iraq is at. Vietnam, Korea, all of these operations that we some we know about, some we don't. Now, I understand to people what they must have went through, but besides Vietnam, you signed up for that shit. Okay? And I don't mean to be harsh, but people in the military, again, with the exception of Vietnam, they signed up for the military. If you didn't want to be in those situations, then you shouldn't join the military. If you want to fight for people's freedoms, then fucking start defending people when the police are fucking beating the shit out of them for no reason. That would be defending my freedom. Start patrolling the police. What I mean is, you know how the police are patrolling? Have your own patrol car patrolling the police and stop them when they're fucking arresting people for drugs and kidnapping them. That would be protecting my freedom or other people's freedoms. Now, that doesn't mean I don't feel bad for people that got fucked over. A lot of veterans got fucked over by the government, and definitely the people that got drafted in Vietnam, they totally got fucking screwed over by the government. And I feel bad for them, and that's a totally different scenario than the others, because Vietnam was a draft, so that's different. But the shit they had to go through, and the fact that but those people should be mad at the government too, that the government fucking, you know, these people have nightmares, some of them watch people die in front of them. I understand all that. I mean, I don't, but I do. I mean, I can imagine, but I understand the fact that that affects you. And that somehow in your head, they taught you or ingrained in your brain that you can't get out, that the national anthem and the flag and all this shit is a symbol of what you went through. But it's really not. And actually, it is in a sense, because it's the government who put you in those situations that you should have never been in the first place. So to be honest, if you're a veteran, the people that you should be fucking mad at is the government. And you should be the ones that don't stand and salute the fucking flag neither, because the government has fucked you over. They put you in wars, in danger, for nothing. They put your life in danger. They gave a lot of you post-traumatic stress syndrome. A lot of you lost limbs. Why? You weren't fighting for freedom. And I understand some of the people after 9/11 that they thought, hey, you know, this is what happened and we're going to go and get revenge. And first of all, revenge is, as hard as it is for me to say this, as somebody who would probably want revenge on people. I mean, revenge doesn't accomplish anything anyway. But, you know, it's a course. Well, something happened. We got to hold somebody accountable. It doesn't matter if it's the right people or not. Because the whole Osama bin Laden thing, supposedly at first, you know, he didn't claim responsibility. Plus, again, he was a CIA asset. I mean, come on. And everybody coming out of Saudi Arabia. I mean, that's a whole show in itself. But I understand, based on the propaganda, that a lot of people joined. But again, with what you know now, if you happen to look at any of this shit, you should be mad at the government. Nobody should be standing for the fucking national anthem. And nobody should be celebrating that fucking bullshit or hanging fucking flags. Because your freedoms are an illusion. It's a fucking illusion. It's the biggest mind fuck ever. The United States. I wish, I could sit there and say that it wasn't, and that I believe that we do have freedom, but we just have a longer leash because they figured out how to keep people in line and accomplish what they want to accomplish by brainwashing people into thinking that they're free. And I'm not saying that other countries are better and I want to go live in some other country. And that's what they kept saying to him. So if you criticize a country, this is a ridiculous line too. These fucking people that are mad are like, and I've gotten this before too, go move someplace else. Go to, especially if you say you don't want a government, go to, what's that place in Africa? Somalia. So you live in a country that you're saying you love because of the freedoms, and then when somebody exercises them, you tell them to leave the country. What the fuck? The guy didn't say anything that was that bad. He didn't say, I hate America and whatever, and, all these other countries are better. And yeah, if you say, well, this country's better and this country's better and that country's better, and then somebody says, well, why don't you go live there? Well, yeah, you're saying that country's better. So, okay, I guess I can understand people saying that, but he didn't say this is the worst country in the world and there's a bunch of other countries that I'd be better off in, and no. And I have a lot of respect for what he did, because obviously, and we're taught this is ingrained in people's heads, I'm telling you, of how big that not standing up for the national anthem is. And he's on a football team on the field. He's not in the stands. So I had said on Thursday about, no one's standing up anymore. And then somebody stands up. Now, whether I agree with everything that he said, that's a whole nother story. And we'll get into that. And, I think his girlfriend is very influential in his life, and, that might have something to do with it. But I agree with that pretty much everything he said, except for the fact that he just said just black people are being oppressed and killed by police and all that. And that's where I disagree. I think we're all being oppressed, except, a certain percentage, which is very small. And some, of course, more than others. And some of that's luck, and then some of that is just, being careful or making sure, I don't go out that much for a reason. So I'm very careful with everything I do for a reason. Everywhere I go, all of that shit. And I talked about all of a sudden every file I have is downloaded on the same day by some city that tracks to some city right outside of D.C. So I'm pretty confident that, that of course is the U.S. government, as they're, sucking up everybody's data. Not that I'm special. I'm sure they do it to everybody else as well. But whether they're listening to any of it or not, or putting it through a machine to check for keywords or whatever, I don't know. I don't think that with all the things that people are saying that I'm high up on their list, especially where I don't get, the amount of views or whatever that a lot of other people do, or listens or whatnot. So, but I have been harassed by police in Las Vegas. So that's what I mean. Locally, I'm very careful about, we'll say, my movements and where I go. And because, the police don't have to kill you publicly. And what I mean is that the public, hears about it. Las Vegas is known. I mean, these are, of course, rumors, but I believe them that that the police used to bury people out in the desert. And I believe that. So, got to be careful. And there's a whole bunch of people that I believe the government has killed and make it look like, whether it's a suicide where Gary Webb gets shot in the head twice and it's deemed a suicide, or Michael Hastings' car blows up when he's working on some article about the CIA, or, those type of things. The Boston bombers, where they just start firing. I don't know how he survived in the boat. The second brother. So many different things. But that's why I don't personally stand for it. But a player not standing for it should not create this kind of outrage. And the fact is is that, look at what it's done. It's insane. And the reaction to this, it's ridiculous. It shows, it's evidence, it's an example, another one, of the brainwashing by the United States government. And how effective it is, actually. That you can get millions of people in an uproar just because you didn't stand for a song. So I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about this. We'll also talk about his girlfriend, because unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess it depends on how you want to look at it. It kind of sounds like she is behind a lot of this, to be honest. And she also dated one of the other 49ers, and supposedly there was a fight over it. So, and I read that she was, one place they said she was 31, but I read that she was 33, and he's 28. And I don't know, he, as far as I know, is not somebody who, I'm not saying he's not street smart, but is not a street type of person as far as I know. Meaning, he didn't grow up like that. So he could be kind of, you know, under the influence of a girl that he's in love with, that he, you know, how it can go when it comes to girls, man. So either way, I support him not standing for it, whether it was a lot of her influence or not. I just don't support Black Lives Matter and them really being a communist front. And if you want to listen to the 2 shows I did, they have the websites on their signs, but you can't tell that they're communist websites. And also, if you go through their platform, it's very obvious that, you know, they've been hijacked by the people that are funding them, and that their whole platform is a socialist/communist platform that is more written by progressives than Black Lives Matter, that would fit more into progressives' agenda than Black Lives Matter. And that's, you know, that's why those are my issues with Black Lives Matter. It has nothing to do with them being against the police, because I'm more against the police than Black Lives Matter is. And I'm against whether they're killing black people or white people or whoever. So I'm not against them protesting somebody getting killed by the police, regardless of race. The only racial part was that they were focusing too much on race to the point where it took the focus off of the police themselves. That it took the focus off of them having too much power and all of these other things, and allowed the government to talk about things like, oh, we can just federalize them, that will help. And yeah, that's pretty much what they've done already. But, you know, they're the one training them and giving them all the weapons. But federalizing them is going to change them, sure. Okay. Well, anyway, let me play these clips and we will be right back. And you got to listen to some of these fucking guys, man. I mean, it's ridiculous what they're saying. I mean, one guy calls him a bully. It's just, it's pretty ridiculous. And it's all over. They're all fucking brainwashed, man. What I worry about is how many people are actually like this. And this is where the government media can really fuck with you, because you don't know. I think it's usually always lower than what they try to make you think it is. Just like they try to make you think, oh, it's so fucking dangerous because all they show is shootings all the time. It's an example of, you know, let us show a couple of these, or they know that enough people will take to YouTube and make stupid videos, and that will help to shape the public opinion that, oh, look, there are all these people that are angry now. It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, because there's some videos of them burning his jersey, that now the majority of fans want to burn his jersey and are mad about what happened. It doesn't really mean shit. It could be fucking 10 people for all we know. So that's the one thing that is dangerous to me, or that's hard to really measure, is the amount. Because it's not just something you're going to get statistics on or something like that, neither. Not that government statistics. That's another thing that you can trust many of those. So anyway, we'll be right back after this. nonpartisanlibertyforall.com. Check out our website or give us a call, 702-470-7664, or Skype, username Nonpartisan Liberty for All, and we'll be right back.
This message is for America. It's not just for Colin. Evening, guys. Well, let's start with Colin Kaepernick, and he sits during the national anthem. He says, well, it would be wrong of me.
The San Francisco 49ers quarterback, Colin Kaepernick. I don't even know how to pronounce this douchebag's name, and I don't care.
Are you looking for a podcast that talks about life, the universe, and everything? Listen in to the Illumination Hour, Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Listen live at Spreaker.com or nonpartisanlibertyforall.com. We're also on SoundCloud, Spreaker, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, and iTunes. The Illumination Hour, brought to you by Nonpartisan Liberty for All Media and Radio Network. And your host, Ellen Stallone. Because a spark can illuminate the world.
With a growing controversy around NFL star Colin Kaepernick, the San Francisco 49ers quarterback, causing an uproar when he refused to stand during the national anthem, and he's not backing down. NBC's Jolene Kent is in Los Angeles with more for us. Joe, good morning.
Carson, good morning. Colin Kaepernick is no stranger to controversy, protesting police violence and racial injustice frequently on social media. Now he's taking a stand again by refusing to stand during the national anthem, angering some fans and fellow players.
I know what I'm doing, what's right.
San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick speaking out on camera for the first time, addressing his decision not to stand for the national anthem at a preseason game Friday in protest of racial injustice.
There's people being murdered unjustly and not being held accountable. Cops are getting paid leave for killing people.
The 28-year-old, who is biracial, had harsh words for both presidential candidates.
You have Hillary, who's called black teens or black kids super predators. You have Donald Trump, who's openly racist.
Kaepernick also claims he's been a victim of racial profiling.
One of my roommates was moving out of a house in college, and because we were the only black people in that neighborhood, the cops got called and all of us had guns drawn on us.
His position now causing backlash from fellow NFL star Victor Cruz.
You got to respect the flag, and you got to stand up with your teammates.
To angry fans on Twitter.
People die every single day defending that flag that you refuse to stand for, and I won't stand for that.
This man setting his Kaepernick jersey on fire.
Move to Canada.
Others spoke out in support of Kaepernick from his own team.
At the end of the day, he's a 49er. He's our brother, and we're going to go forward.
Billionaire NBA team owner Mark Cuban tweeting, "I may not understand his perspective or agree with him, but Colin Kaepernick taught us we can still disagree in this country peacefully." The 49ers trying to find middle ground, saying in a statement, the national anthem is an opportunity to honor our country. We recognize the right of an individual to choose to participate or not. Disciplinary action against Kaepernick is unlikely, the NFL says. Players are encouraged but not required to stand during the playing of the national anthem. Kaepernick willing to take the risk to stand up for what he believes in.
I can't look in the mirror and see other people dying on the street and say, you know what, I can live with myself.
Kaepernick says he will continue to refuse to stand during the national anthem going forward until he says things in this country change. Carson.
All right, Jolene Kent, I'm sure that's not the end of that story. Thank you very much.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on.
Evening, guys. Well, let's start with Colin Kaepernick, and he sits during the national anthem. He says, well, it would be wrong of me. Let me get you here exactly what he said. He says, I'm not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color, he said after the game. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder. Okay, number one, let's think about this here, Colin. The president that was put into place is black. The last two attorney generals been black. His right arm is Iranian. Take a look at most of the football players, basketball players, and so forth. What color are they? Black. Do people support them? Yes. And the fact is, this country, take a look at Hollywood. I mean, you can't tell me that this country...
What this guy is saying is more responding to Black Lives Matter and what they said than what Colin Kaepernick actually said. At least the part regarding the police. Because he's saying that, you know, black people are being oppressed, being murdered by police. Well, black people are being oppressed by the police. But white people and, you know, other races are as well. But Black Lives Matter are more the ones that are saying that it's institutionalized racism and black people can't be successful. I mean, they're making it out more like there's no way black people can be successful in this society because it's set up automatically for them to fail. So if that's the question he's responding to, which it's not, then, you know, if you want to say that, but I mean, he's kind of just sounding, I mean, stupid. The bottom line is that obviously we live in a country where black people can be successful. There's opportunity to be successful if you're black. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not racism, and that doesn't mean that it's not harder. So that all this shit is irrelevant because, oh, there's a black president. Well, there's no racism. No, it doesn't mean that there's no racism. I think there's less racism. If you can elect a black president, then there's definitely less racism than there was, 40 years ago. But it doesn't mean that there's none. But on the other side of that is I don't think we'll ever live in a society that there's no racism. There's going to be people that don't like other people based on race or religion or ethnicity or whatever. And that's really, as long as they don't act on it, that's really their right to do that. And whether you're black or white or whatever, you have a right to associate who you want to associate with. But this guy just really isn't addressing the issue.
Does not support black celebrities, and I mean, it's just bullshit. It's just such bullshit. And Colin, I'll tell you what, I know you're alluding to police gunning down innocent people. I want you to pull your head out of your ass, grow up, and you take the place of some of those policemen. Do it for a week. Go into the bad part of town. Find out what it's like. You got a big mouth, Colin. And maybe what you're trying to do, maybe you really believe in what you're doing, but you're wrong. You're just wrong, and you're stupid. Oh, my word. I mean, what does it take? You think you're being cool? No, you're not being cool. And by the way, Colin, about 80% of the crime is black on black. It's not white on black. It's not black on white. It's black on black, you dumbass. And as far as I'm concerned, he doesn't want to stand for the national anthem. You know something? The people there...
It's actually, I think 82% of white people are killed by white people and 93 or 94% of black people are killed by black people. Depends on the year. But I believe it was something like 50% of people are murdered by black people. And I think the large number is because of the large number of black people killed by black people. So, again, looking at statistics involving population, black people make up 13% of the population. So that number, I think, is that high. I believe it's around 50% because of the number of murders. Because even though 93% of black people are killing black people, that number of black people that are getting killed is high. I think it's more than the amount of white people that kill white people, or white people that are killed, period, actually. So, but that, again, that's really irrelevant to what he was talking about. Because when you have the government killing people and you're talking about, now, Black Lives Matter is a little different, because if you're saying Black Lives Matter, but if you're talking about the government killing people, to bring up black people killing black people is irrelevant. It has nothing to do with the conversation. The government killing people, and I've said this before, people just killing other people that are not police or government agents is totally different. So that argument, the only reason that argument to me has some validity when you against Black Lives Matter is because they name themselves Black Lives Matter. If they name themselves Black Lives something with the police, then that argument would be totally irrelevant, because there's nothing wrong with just focusing on the black people that are getting killed by police, because the government, you actually shouldn't be killing their own citizens. I hate that word, citizens, because what does that even give you, and whatever. That's a whole nother issue.
They need to do something about it. They need to talk to and call the San Francisco front office and say, you know, if this is going to be your policy, if you're going to stand up for them, then you know something, we don't support you. And I won't be buying any more tickets. Do it that way. Look at Target. Target's shitting their pants because people quit shopping there. They're changing their bathroom policy. Dwayne Wade speaks out after his cousin got gunned down in Crossfire. He says, well, we need more hands on deck. Let me tell you what you need in Chicago, Dwayne Wade. Number one, you need someone like Trump to be president. Then you need a decent attorney general that's got the guts to enforce.
This douchebag turns this into a fucking Trump commercial, so yeah, we're done with him.
Hey everyone, I'm Nessa. You're checking out Baller Alert.
And now every day of my life I ball.
Oh, I understand that you're dating Colin Kaepernick. We're talking about him a lot these days. He is amazing. What are your thoughts on him sitting and the kind of the controversy that's surrounding?
I support him 100%, you know, and I think it's amazing that he's able to exercise his freedom of speech. And I think that that's what makes being an American amazing, is that we can be open and we can say these things. And this is something that's important. And I think that we should use this to have open dialogue and take steps to make this country a better place to live in.
Now, did y'all have like a conversation before this? Did you know it was coming?
None.
Did you think he ever anticipated it would blow up this big? Because, I mean, you think it's not that serious.
Colin truly feels this. He lives this. And it's from his heart. And that's what makes this so beautiful, because this wasn't pre-planned. You know, being a good person is in your soul. You know what I mean? And when someone asks you, how do you feel about tragedies that are going on, you know, you have to be honest.
That's amazing. And I know you're there holding him down.
That's my guy, man. That's my man. I love him, and I'm so proud of him, and I support him. He just had another interview. Make sure you guys check it out, where he explains thoroughly what he was saying. And thank you guys for supporting him.
I love it.
And honestly, it means a lot, because we have to support one another. So thank you guys. From my heart, I really appreciate it.
This message is for America. It's not just for Colin Kaepernick
Heated debate stirred up by Colin Kaepernick, the 49ers quarterback, refusing to stand for the national anthems before games. Fans protesting his jersey. They're burning it. You see some of that right there. And now he's speaking out to defend his actions. ABC's Ryan Smith is here with the latest. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, George, Amy. Colin Kaepernick is speaking out about his protest, and he's not backing down, with fans by the thousands attacking him online for refusing to stand. As you mentioned, some even burning his jersey. The quarterback saying by sitting down, he's standing up for what he thinks needs to change.
Colin, here's my salute to you.
Colin Kaepernick under fire from fans and fellow players after his refusal to stand up for the national anthem, doubling down overnight.
I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed. When there's significant change and I feel like that flag represents what it's supposed to represent, I'll stand.
Kaepernick gonna run it. The 49ers dual threat quarterback with the rocket arm and lightning quick feet staying seated during the national anthem at Friday's preseason game, telling the NFL Network, "I'm not going to stand up and show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color."
I have experienced this. People close to me have experienced this. So it's something that needs to be addressed.
Kaepernick clarifying Sunday that refusing to honor the flag doesn't mean he's disrespecting the military.
People are dying in vain because this country isn't holding their end of the bargain up as far as, giving freedom and justice and liberty to everybody.
The 28-year-old, frequently outspoken on civil rights issues online, seemingly began his protest weeks earlier, sitting during the anthem for the team's previous 2 preseason games, though few seemed to notice. But after Friday's game, outrage, thousands flooding his Twitter page with comments. Giants receiver Victor Cruz saying sitting down isn't the right way to stand up.
You have to stand up there with your team and understand that it's this game and what's going on around the country is bigger than just you.
While others defending Kaepernick, Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban weighing in. He didn't throw a bomb, fire a shot, start a riot, throw a punch. He just sat there quietly. Kaepernick says the vitriol he's now facing is worth it to make a point.
I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, I really respect you for what you're doing and what you're standing for.
The NFL telling ABC News in a statement players are encouraged but not required to stand during the national anthem. But when asked if this will get him cut from the team, the quarterback says he doesn't know, adding that if he's cut, he feels he did what he feels is right, and he can live with that at the end of the day, George.
Okay, Ryan, thanks. Let's bring in ESPN's Stephen A. Smith for more on this. And, Stephen, you've done a lot on this whole issue of violence. You've had special shows on it as well. What's your take on what Colin's doing?
Well, I understand it and I respect it. I respectfully disagree with how he went about doing it because it's certainly not something that I would have done. But at the same time, we also have to understand that the First Amendment to our Constitution is freedom of speech and freedom of expression. And that's one of the things that he exercised here. He wanted to make a point. And as Mark Cuban pointed out, he didn't plant a bomb. He didn't shoot anybody. He didn't do anything. He made a silent protest. He's an unabashed supporter of Black Lives Matter. He addressed the issue of police brutality as an incentive as to why he was taking the position that he took. We understand it. And, a lot of people within the black community, I can tell you for a fact, absolutely agree with him. A lot of people don't agree with how he went about doing it.
Let's get into that. What about the criticism about how he went about doing it? Some saying it's a distraction from his job.
Well, you could. That's a valid point in some people's eyes, but people take stances all the time. And if you remember when Trayvon Martin transpired and other things happened as it pertained to the actions against African Americans, you had NBA players putting on T-shirts. Some people thought that was a distraction. Obviously, they beg to differ. You see silent protests that have been taking place in recent memory. People who are against the positions that these athletes take will always find an excuse to say that it is a distraction. But what they have to understand, particularly when it's emanating from the black community and in particular a black athlete, the mere fact that it's being debated or people are questioning whether or not it's a distraction, what you're saying to yourself is it not supposed to be a distraction? We're trying to bring attention to an issue. Colin Kaepernick obviously felt that way, and even though some people would disagree, and they certainly have the right to do so, there are others who would stand by him and say that they don't have a problem with what he's doing whatsoever.
What's this going to mean for his job?
Well, it depends. If he can still play, it won't mean much. It'll mean a lot in terms of endorsements. He's definitely going to feel the pinch there. And I think he spoke to the fact that he certainly knows that's coming. But as it pertains to him having a job in the NFL, I don't think this is an issue. I think the fact that he looks a bit subpar, he's coming off a season where he was a bit subpar, only threw 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, had a QBR of about 47. He doesn't look that impressive, and there's rumors as to whether or not he's going to get cut. In the end, if you can play, there will be somebody who will give you a job because their primary obligation is to try and win football games. If you cannot play, they will find an excuse to get rid of you. It is that simple. This won't determine his future as a quarterback in the NFL. His play will.
Okay, Stephen A. Smith, thanks very much.
This message is for America. It's not just for Colin Kaepernick or any other bully. Yes, I said bully.
This message is for this fucking fat fucking douchebag. You can't see the video of this, but I saw the video originally. And fuckhead, he calls him a bully. He says he's bullying soldiers. These people are morons. They're fucking redneck fucking morons. I don't want to insult any rednecks. I'm sure there's a lot of nice rednecks, but these are moron fucking dumbasses that are. It's just ridiculous. I'll just let the rest of these clips from these ignorant fucks play. Only got a couple more of them, and then we'll wrap up the show.
When you disrespect the flag, you spit in the face of the men and women that have fought to defend this country, and anyone that's ever signed on the line to be a soldier. So, you're a bully. I mean, bullying, at its basic definition from psychologytoday.com, is a distinctive pattern of deliberately harming or humiliating others. So when you disrespect an American soldier, you humiliate them. It's wrong. They have so much.
That is the most ridiculous logic, and it's very dangerous logic like that, to say that if you don't do this, then you're disrespecting me and you're bullying me. Because you could say that with anything. That, oh, well, I feel that this is disrespectful, so you doing this is bullying. It's the kind of logic that gets people thinking that they have the right to tell other people how to live their lives, and they should do that through the government and pass a bunch of laws.
Respect for that flag and for the freedoms they fight for you to have freedom. Why would you do that? I don't understand that. Anyways, it's bullying. Now, I know a lot about bullying. I was a short, fat kid with glasses in school. For years, I was told I had 4 eyes. Now, what did my parents do? Did they tell me? Those people will pick on you for your entire life. You should hate them. You should be mean to them. No, my parents said, you know, those people are going to be like that. There are people that will be nice to you. Best thing you can do is avoid those people. You're a good kid, avoid those people, do the best with what God gave you. That's what my parents told me. But, you know, there's times that bullies trap you. They do. Yep, I was trapped. One of the most humiliating times in my life. And I'm going to share it with you. I'm not ashamed to anymore. When I was a young man, freshman in high school, Christian high school in Toledo, Ohio, I was come out of gym class, standing there in the locker room, get my clothes on, pull on my shirt, went to put on my glasses. They weren't there. Turned around, there's 3 of my classmates, the other side of the locker room, 6, 8 feet away. They had my glasses. I sent them my glasses back.
So a lot of people are up in arms about why Colin Kaepernick didn't stand for the national anthem before his football game. The most common defense people are making right now is that he was practicing his First Amendment. Whoa, man, you can't hate on him. He's practicing free speech. That's perfectly fine. No one's saying that free speech is wrong, but Westboro Baptist Church uses the same freedom of speech. Doesn't make it right. You're wanting to take it out on an anthem that represents this country and our foundation, just like the flag does not represent the current state of affairs of our country. And it's perfectly understandable why veterans would take serious offense to this, because a lot of our brothers and sisters have died, not only for the freedom of speech, but for many other freedoms. But that anthem means a lot to us. I also find it very hypocritical that the NFL tells the Dallas Cowboys they're not allowed to put badges on their helmets in support of the law enforcement community, but Kaepernick is perfectly fine by just exercising his free speech to say that he's protesting the oppression of the black community in America. Well, let's just jump right into that. What oppression? I'm not seeing it. We have black president. We have black Supreme Court justices, black congressmen, black senators, black everything out there. There is no oppression. What you are thinking is being oppression is that people are being held accountable for their actions in regards to breaking the law. And here comes the argument that people are going to say they're being targeted because they're black. It's been proven statistically that more white people die by being shot by police officers than black people. No one seems to realize that these racially driven shootings by cops are not as prevalent as people think. Why? The statistics show this. It's proven, but no one wants to argue that. Instead, we want to throw temper tantrums when we don't get our own way, loot and pillage our own neighborhoods. What sense does that make? I grew up being taught that you're going to be accountable for your own actions. If you want something in this world, you're going to have to work for it and earn it.
The San Francisco 49ers quarterback, Colin Kaepernick, I don't even know how to pronounce this douchebag's name, and I don't care. He's making headlines because he refused to stand during the national anthem at the Packers 49ers pregame on Friday because he thinks that the American flag, the national anthem, and everything America is symbolic of oppression of black people. This, a guy who's getting paid an estimated $19 million a year by the country that oppresses black people. This by a guy who's living in a country where the president is black. This by a guy whose black father knocked up his mother and then abandoned her, which then resulted in a nice white couple adopting him and raising him and giving the quality, love, and opportunities that has led to him playing in the NFL, making $20 million a year. His entire Twitter account is filled with Black Lives Matter propaganda. And once again, I've triggered the liberals by tweeting out hashtag Go Back to Africa, which many mentally enslaved morons think is racist, but it's not. It's the logical solution for someone who is just disgusted by living in a country that has a white majority that, again, has paid him $20 million a year. You want to be surrounded by, people of color, by your own kind, then there's a whole continent, Colin, that's filled with those kinds of people. You should move there.
Nonpartisan Liberty for All. Call in at 702-470-7664 or Skype in. Username Nonpartisan Liberty for All.
Nonpartisan Liberty for All, and we are back. I don't know what he tweeted, so maybe he is talking more about the other things beyond the police, and he has a right to do that as well. Again, just because of all of these things, never mind even the racial part of it, just because there are people that are successful doesn't mean that there's not oppression going on. So, and that's what I was talking earlier, how the U.S. is the best country at having the illusion of freedom. So just because there's a bunch of football players that make, $10 million a year doesn't mean that poverty doesn't exist. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that because we have a bunch of 1% or less than 1% are billionaires, that I'm trying to type a text right now, but that doesn't mean that there aren't people that are making minimum wage, struggling to make it. So one thing has nothing to really do with the other. I know he was saying in terms of race, and as I said, just because there's a black president doesn't mean that there's no racism. But the point does stand that if you're black, it does not mean that you cannot be successful. So that whole thing, and this is where Black Lives Matter totally turned into something else, where they took the being oppressed by the police. And if they want to talk about being oppressed by the courts and stuff like that, I mean, they could talk about whatever they want, but I agree with that as well. And I agree with people in general being oppressed by the government, and black people more. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that, you know, the way some of the people from Black Lives Matter talk about it is it's like it's, you know, the 60s or Jesus, it's 1870, right after slavery or something, where things are so fucked up, you know, that black people have no chance of doing anything with their lives. They're just going to be, you know, all of them have to work at McDonald's. That's bullshit. If you're black and you want to be successful, it's getting harder for everybody. I think people are responsible for their actions, but at the same time, I think it's harder for everybody now because of the government and what they're doing and how they're rigging the system and inflation and all of these things that they're doing with the Fed, the monopolies with corporations, allowing them basically to take over industries where it's harder and harder for people to independently start their own businesses and all of this. So it's harder for everybody, but I would say it's harder than, as I said earlier, it's harder for the average black person than the average white person. At the same time, if you're black, you still have opportunities to be successful. So to say a lot of the things that they're saying, it's not, I don't think they're valid arguments. Now, at the same time, it doesn't mean that because people get successful that we're not being oppressed by the government, because really success has nothing to do with the government. You can be successful and then the government can come in and charge you with a bunch of shit that you didn't do or do whatever they want to you. So success outside of government means nothing when it comes to being oppressed by the government and having freedoms and things like that. But it's not like, in general, that I feel that black people are second-class citizens where there's no successful black people and they can't be successful if they want to. I think they do have to work harder than the average white person in a lot of circumstances. And I think that for all people that don't come from families of privilege, and that's why the whole white privilege thing to me is bullshit, there is privilege and a lot of families of privilege, but there's a lot of families that are of all races that don't come from any type of privilege. And just because you're white isn't going to get you a fucking job, okay? It's not like that. And when people say, though, well, because the president's black and this person's black and they're successful and this person's black, it doesn't mean that there's not racism. But in the few minutes that we have left, or about 10 minutes that we have left, I want to go into one part of this that it's kind of irrelevant. You know, I support what he's doing. I don't stand for the national anthem. And really, I don't care why he's doing it, as far as like, if it's more, you know, if he's more affiliated with Black Lives Matter, you know, he's getting fooled, to be honest, unless he's a communist. But, you know, not standing for the national anthem and having the balls to do that. I mean, I get nervous not standing for the national anthem in the stands. You know, imagine him. Of course, he's not going to be attacked for it. I mean, physically attacked for it while he's sitting on the bench there at the stadium. But I mean, his career, his endorsements, all of those things, and all these people who now are talking all this shit about him. But his girlfriend, and this is where it gets kind of, you know, I don't know if he was an activist before he met her, and he was concerned with a lot of this stuff. And don't fucking get shit twisted, man. It's been going on since police started that probably more people were getting murdered by the police. This is not a new thing. The only new thing is everybody got a fucking camera. We got the internet. I mean, that's it. We got things like Killed by Police, who are doing their best to track an accurate number of police, because the Department of Justice doesn't do it. They're like, well, if they tell us, you know, but we don't actively keep track. We don't give a fuck if people get killed by police, is really what they're saying. So he had met this girl who also dated another football player. You know, I don't know a lot about her, so I don't want to put her down or anything like that. If she is 33, I mean, she's 5 years older than him, and she's been around, meaning not that she's been around like sexually, but she seems like she's an intelligent girl who could take advantage of a kid that, again, Colin Kaepernick doesn't seem to have grown up as, you know, a street smart kid. And I'm saying not that he's stupid, just that he hasn't been, I don't think he's been exposed to a lot of things. And I think she has. And, you know, I'm fine if he came out and said, you know, all the shit about police and whatever, and government. I'm cool with that. It's the Black Lives Matter thing that I don't agree with. And anything that has to do with more government or communism or any of that bullshit, because I just want freedom for everybody. But he converted to Islam, and he's a Muslim now. Now, his girlfriend is Middle Eastern, and she's a Muslim, and now they're going to have a Muslim wedding. And she's also a big supporter of Black Lives Matter. She's on a hip-hop station. She does shows on MTV and MTV2. When I mean MTV2, there's actually MTV number 2. There's 1 and 2. So not one is just MTV. So it seemed like he gets into this when he meets this girl, and that maybe she introduces him to some things that he's not familiar. I mean, the converting to Islam, it almost seems like the opposite usually happens, where the guy is the one who is the, and he always seemed like, you know, a mild-mannered, you know, quiet guy, Colin Kaepernick, respectful, just, you know, good-mannered, quiet guy. And it seems like she, you know, maybe he never met a girl like her. He meets her. I mean, she's beautiful. I've seen her on video, and I played that clip of her. And I'm sorry for it was only coming through one channel. I don't know why. So that may have something to do with it, because you have your boyfriend converting to your religion. I mean, that is kind of like who's wearing the pants in that relationship. And, you know, if he feels how he feels about what's going on with the police, you know, that's fine. At least get the story straight, though, that police are killing all races and they're harassing and oppressing all races. And the government is, I mean, fucking what happened to being spied on? That's not oppression. Fucking all the programs that the NSA have, that's not oppression of people. What the fuck? If that's not, then what? I don't know what is. That's not just happening to black people. So, we're all being oppressed to a certain extent. We're being fucked over by the government. The government wants to control every aspect of your life. And I think some of the things they did to the black, well, I don't want to say the black community because I think that's unfair. I think people have this idea that all black people live in this one fucking community, and it's not the truth. There are communities that are majority black, and then black people live with all other races, just like the majority of communities, at least that I've seen, for the most part, although I've seen segregated communities too, but like in Las Vegas at least, it's all mixed. I mean, it's everybody everywhere. So, but they've, being the government, I mean, tried, I would even say experiments in a way, in communities that were majority black. So, you know, things like crack is that it's not proven, but, you know, and I remember watching a documentary on the Bloods and the Crips, and people claim that they would find trains just filled with guns, like open train cars, you know, shit like that. And the way that they police those areas and the amount of freedom in those areas, I mean, things like that it's like they're like, okay, well, we're going to practice this in a community that's majority black, and then eventually we're going to do this to the whole fucking country, but let's start this first. So it's I don't know. I'm sick of talking about Black Lives Matter just because I can't just give a 2-sentence statement on Black Lives Matter, because there's so much more. It's a lot deeper than that. Now, I can tell you, yes, how their platform is communist, and I believe they're a communist front. But then when it comes to, you know, racism and things like that, and oppression, and, you know, yes, racism exists, but at the same time, all races are being oppressed and killed by the police. So it's deeper than that. So for me, I try to give not just how I feel about things, but how I feel about things based on experiences, information, and research and things like that as well. And it's not as simple as just, you know, saying, okay, well, Black Lives Matter is essentially a hijacked organization that is pushing a progressive agenda, like they had, what was the other thing they had in there? Climate change, you know, things like that are in there. And it's just it's so obvious if you read through it that it's like, you know, Hillary Clinton's writers, you know, came in and wrote that shit and, you know, included all the stuff to apply to black people, but then threw in like their whole agenda. So, you know, and people don't want to speak out about it because they'll be called racist. Although people have spoken out about it, but not like how I do, because again, it's more complicated than that, because outside of Black Lives Matter, there is racism. Again, I called it more discrimination or prejudice, where, you know, police think every black person's a criminal type thing, or a young black person between, you know, the ages of 18 and 30 or something, you know, so there's that part of it too. But then at the same time, we're all being oppressed by the government, and the government doesn't give a fuck when it really comes down to it. They don't give a fuck what color you are. You think the government's like, oh, well, we want to save the white people. They don't give a fuck. They want as much control as possible. They want to control every aspect of everything, including your life. And it doesn't matter what color you are. They want to control your fucking life. Unless you're one of them, you know, part of the small elite. So that's all we have for tonight. And again, I want to give props to Colin Kaepernick for doing what I've been doing. Of course, nobody knows who the fuck I am, so it doesn't really matter. But I'll be wearing his shirt. When I heard it, I wore it that day. So thanks, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about transgender people and government and freedom and laws and all of that type of stuff. So thanks, everybody. Have a good night. They may at like Little League games or something. But, I mean, it's ridiculous. I've done shows on this before, so although because of the incident that happened over I think it was the whole preseason, but people just didn't notice. But because of that, I have to revisit this again, which is a good time because we haven't really talked about it in a while. So there's so many things really to say about this, and a lot of them have nothing to do with Colin Kaepernick or his politics or any of that. But the whole idea of how far fucking these networks go to celebrate the military. I mean, first of all, let me summarize what happened before we get into that for people who don't know. And I'm sure if you're listening to the show, you probably know. Anyway, Colin Kaepernick, who if you've seen any of the pictures of me in the studio, I think the ones that are out there there's 3 different ones that I did. And I either have a UNLV shirt on, a Nevada Reno shirt on, or like a Las Vegas 51 shirt on. Because pretty much besides dress shirts, I do love my button-up dress shirts, but, you know, I wear football jerseys and, like, nice ones. I mean, I don't wear, like, raggedy fucking football jerseys and shit. And I have some baseball jerseys. I have, and they're fucking expensive. So the baseball jerseys were $75. The 51s ones I got, and the 51s are the Las Vegas AAA team. They're the AAA team of the Mets. I liked it better when they were the AAA team of the Dodgers.
Alpha Team report.
What's happening, Heather?
Alpha Team isn't responding.
Bravo?
Still nothing.
You lost both teams? Get a grip on this operation, Heather. That's bored. Green light the asset.
Sir, I need more time.
We have no time. Are you going to give that order or not?
Sir, please.
You're too naive to see the truth. There's no bringing in Bourne. He has to be put down. And you obviously cannot do what has to be done. I am.
We will defend these police officers.
Listen to police officers' commands, listen to what we tell you, and just stop. The nation needs to realize that when we tell you to do something, do it. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, then the courts will figure it out.
We don't get to pick the laws, we enforce them. But at the end of the day, each and every member is to go home safe.
Sometimes the use of force is necessary. You need to comply with the police officer the way the system was meant to be. Comply with the orders of police officers. Resisting arrest is a real and dangerous crime.
Nonpartisan Liberty for All. I'm your host, Dave Bourne, and it is August 30th, 2016, and I'm coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada. Had an issue at the beginning of the show, but we fixed that rather quickly. Sometimes at the beginning, when I use Spreaker for the live feeds of the show, and sometimes it I don't know, it's like it's disconnecting, and I just restart it because I don't want to go through the whole fucking show worrying about it and having problems. So anyway, I very quickly restarted the show. But anyway, thank you for tuning in to Nonpartisan Liberty for All. We're on weeknights Tuesday through Thursday at 7, to be honest. And that's where they look more like the Dodgers, because if they look like the Mets, I don't know if I would have got them. Even though I support the team and go to the games and shit, but I'm not a big baseball fan. I like going to the 51's games, but I wouldn't watch them on TV if they were on TV. So anyway, Colin Kaepernick happened to play for University of Nevada, Reno. And we only have 2 universities in the state of Nevada, that are part of the university system. I mean, there's like University of Phoenix, and I think there's Nevada State. They're starting up, but I mean, it's not that I want to knock. I mean, I went to University of Phoenix for my master's, not my bachelor's, but I don't want to knock any other up and coming colleges. I hope the state of Nevada develops a state university system, but I don't know that we really need it, because we have a concentrated population in 2 places. Really, is like I think it's like 75 to 80% of the population is in the Reno or Las Vegas area. So of the state, because the federal government owns 80% of the land. So even if we wanted to develop communities, we couldn't do that. And that's fucked up. And that's probably a reason why those were never developed. I mean, it's all desert. So you could say, well, nobody ever wanted to venture out that far. And that's probably bullshit, because Las Vegas did it. And yes, Las Vegas is at the southern tip of Nevada where the weather's nice, and if you go too far up, but Reno is cold. It gets cold in the winter. I was actually there in the Reno area, Lake Tahoe, which is like an hour away, and it was freezing. I know Lake Tahoe is colder because it's further up elevation-wise than Reno, but it was freezing. So I'm sure if it was freezing in Lake Tahoe, it was, and this was, for some reason, I'm thinking it was even October, and it was 10 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern, and you can listen live on Spreaker.com and nonpartisanlibertyforall.com, and to the archives immediately following the show on Spreaker, YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes. On Nonpartisan Liberty for All, we promote the ideas of true freedom and liberty, meaning being able to do whatever you want as long as you respect the freedom of others and don't directly interfere with their freedom, exposing government for what it is, a mafia based on extortion that rules without consent, by threat of force and violence. And the most important concept, self-ownership. We are happy to hear from you. You can reach us via phone at 702-470-7664. That's 702-470-7664. Or via Skype at Nonpartisan Liberty for All. It's all one word. And you can check us out at nonpartisanlibertyforall.com, where you can find original articles, editorials, things of that nature, along with all of the links, contact information, the call-in number in case you forget it, and Skype username as well. So check us out there at nonpartisanlibertyforall.com. So today's show really, to me, shouldn't even be a fucking show. And I say that with the whole idea that sports is ridiculously nationalized, meaning, I mean, I guess that can mean a couple different things, but I mean in the context of nationalism and patriotism and all of this bullshit. And it starts in like Little League and goes all the way to the pros. And why before every fucking game they have to not only salute the country and perform the national anthem, sometimes America the Beautiful, some places the Pledge of Allegiance or something. I don't think they do that at any games. It was probably, cold in Reno. And actually I thought we might have went to Reno. I don't know. Anyway, so I watched Colin Kaepernick play college ball for the Nevada Wolfpack, and his senior year they went 13-1, and they had a great year because of him. So I'm not a fan of the 49ers, but I was happy for him that he went to the NFL, and I don't root for the 49ers, especially when they had Jim Harbaugh as the coach. But, I hope he does well. So I've known who he was for, a while now, playing at Nevada Reno. And I liked his style of play, which was more the coach, but he was great at running it. So it was him as well. Also, what a lot of people don't know is that he was only offered one division. Only one school offered him a Division I scholarship. And we had talked about divisions. We actually did a college football show. So Division I is the top division, and then there's a bunch of divisions under it. So only one school offered him a scholarship, and it was Nevada Reno. And he's from, I guess he was born in Wisconsin. I don't know when he moved, but I was always under the impression he grew up in California. So I'm assuming he moved as a kid. But he grew up in Turlock, I guess. It said he was from Turlock, California. And that's where I know he went to high school, which I believe is in that general area between, San Francisco and Reno, upstate California, and I guess upstate Nevada, you could call it as well. Which he's been in that area for a while because, he played for Reno and then he played for the 49ers. And I think that's one of the reasons why they drafted